the idea that's been most prominently mentioned by the Deputy Foreign Minister of Armenia. I think it's a major step forward in two ways. On the one hand, it depoliticizes the issue. Clearly, no Azerbaijani wants to have to be checked by an Armenian official when he's moving from one part of his own country to another part of his own country. At the same time, Armenia is very, very reluctant to yield on sovereignty. By taking it out of the realm of state politics and transferring it to a company, you have a way that perhaps can square that circle. The European Union, I suspect, and again, we're talking about a very fast-moving situation, so that's why I said exactly what does one mean by model. The European Union, I think, would prefer a more comprehensive settlement that would not involve third parties, but I don't think that's on right now, and therefore I think the what you're referring to as the American model has a better chance of moving forward. I'm reluctant to use the word model. I think this is one possible way forward, shifting from the question of state management to management by a private company that doesn't raise the issues of state sovereignty. That is one way to address complicated diplomatic issues. This would not be the first time it's been done, and what the exact details would be are difficult to say. What strikes me as important is that the two sides are talking about things like this rather than staying where they were, where Azerbaijan doesn't want to have its citizens crossing what Armenia refers to as Syunik, and Armenia doesn't want to give up Syunik Oblast to Azerbaijan, which refers to the same territory as Zangezur. That has been a stumbling block. Some people have even suggested that Zangezur is the ultimate problem between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I think that may be overstating it, but clearly addressing Zangezur and the connection between the two parts of Azerbaijan is critical. I would not say that the proposal that you're referring to as the American model is a final settlement. I don't think this peace treaty is going to be a final settlement. I think we've had too many people suggesting that. What we're talking about are decisions and steps that are confidence building. If one imagined, for example, that an American company was put on the ground in Zangezur Syunik to allow Azerbaijani citizens to move freely back and forth between Azerbaijan proper and Nakhchivan. If after that had gone on for, let's say, 5 years, I think that then the two sides might be able to discuss other issues with a great deal of more confidence than they can without that kind of experience. So that's what I mean by progress, rather than some kind of imposition of an American model. I don't think this is an American model. I think this is a classical kind of effort to address what had been an irresolvable contradiction of claims of state sovereignty by looking outside of politics and looking into business. How far that will go, how well it will work, whether it's even possible. I mean, I'm not saying it's a certainty. I'm saying that this says a lot about where we are in the negotiations between the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia. It suggests that they're moving beyond some of the rhetoric which has kept them apart for so long, and it could be a way of opening things up. It also provides the possibility that the two sides could agree on a transit for people and equipment and cargo, but not military goods. There are a whole range of things that are possible. But we're now talking about something where progress forward is possible, whereas before we'd been in a situation where it was either or. One side has to win, the other side has to lose. In a situation like that, I think we know what the long-term consequences are given the power imbalance between the two sides. And one of the things that I was involved with 30 years ago was promoting the idea of a swap, a territorial swap. That's off the table because Armenia has already pulled out of Karabakh. So the exchanging Karabakh and Nakhchivan, which was once referred to as the Goble plan of all things, is no longer possible. But I argued then, and I've argued since, that unless there's some kind of compromise, then eventually Azerbaijan, by its disproportionate military power, will probably take Zangezur. Whether I don't predict that happening next week or next year, or even perhaps a decade on. But the power imbalance is such that the imposition of borders by Moscow 100 years ago isn't going to stand and forever, and that I would expect efforts would be made to change things geopolitically, unless Armenia and Azerbaijan can come to an agreement which gives Azerbaijan what it wants, namely access. The idea that as an Azerbaijani citizen, you must go through an Armenian passport control is outrageous to many people. The idea that you should have to go through an Iranian passport control, which is the case now, is also outrageous. I think this is a major part of President Ilham Aliyev's thinking, and the fact that we're now talking about the possibility of changing this into a economic rather than a political approach suggests that the two sides really are inching toward an agreement. And if there's no other reason to celebrate Dubai, it's certainly that.
There's a talk that White House may invite President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan to DC, to United States. Do you think it's going to be a substantive meeting, symbolic, or just something so that leaders look for in order to come to peace?
Well, President Trump has very clearly demonstrated during his time in office that he likes to be involved where deals get signed, where progress gets in any issue, he can claim credit for it. I suspect right now that if that invitation were forthcoming, we're not quite at a point where there's going to be an agreement, and I cannot see that the Americans have the leverage to force the one or the other side or both to make concessions. I personally believe, and I believe this as long as I've been looking at the South Caucasus, which is now something on the order of 40 years, that the way you get progress in this part of the world is direct contacts at all levels with the people in the region. That the idea that somebody is going to come in from the outside and solve things is a dangerous misconception. And I don't care whether those are Americans or Russians, Americans, Europeans, whoever. It's direct talks. And that's why Dubai is important. That's why the exploration of something other than just state sovereignty, but using economic tools is important. I think the question of a meeting in Washington, I would be surprised, quite frankly, if it happened very soon, unless the two sides needed some kind of stage in which they could invoke, as it were, international support for whatever it is the two of them decide on. Are we at that point yet? Not from what one can see. Could we be there in relatively short order? It's entirely possible, and I think we should await events rather than trying to get too far ahead of them.